Welcome back, you hear of Goldberg. Today I'll be talking about Richard Cooper's new, or I should say newish book. And my understanding is, I don't know if it's entirely correct, it started as a collaborative effort with TFM, and they were going to call it the Unplugged Alpha. But then there was some disagreement, something got dislodged, and so it became the Unplugged Alpha, the no BS guide to winning with women and life. To be perfectly honest, this is not a bad read, and it's interesting, we know from his older videos, Cooper idolized our friend Rolly Tommaso. In fact, Rolly does the foreword to this book, and he says, I met Rich, and I knew he wasn't a grifter like these other dudes. It's like, well, that's a little debatable, but still, it's almost one of those scenarios where, now I am the master. Cooper has outdone Rolly Tommaso in terms of following, in terms of content, and this book is like taking the rational male, but giving it structure, flow, proper editing, and not being done by someone who's trying and failing to be an internet intellectual. So I would say if you had to pick between Irrational Male and this, go with Unplugged Alpha. Another really funny book that's also got value to it is The Predatory Female. I was just freaking laughing my head off reading that. It's short, but it's really to the point. So this book is set up as many red pill books will be. Is that I was blue pill, this is what happened, I got divorced, and I was able to climb out of it with this knowledge and working hard, and I've become a successful high value man. You can be one too. Which, okay, that's cool. Now it's interesting, I've noticed this both in red pill and black pill circles, there's this almost eroticization of Chad and Tyrone and what they get to do. It's probably a byproduct of people watching so much pornography, but it'll go, oh, you only get a peck on the lips, but she's swallowing Chad's DNA that day. Or, you have to wait 3 months for missionary, but Chad sticks it in her ass the first night. Tyrone gets to have sex with her even if she's on her period. And this thing he mentions having sex with women on their period like a couple of times as though that's endearing to a alpha male. I think it's disgusting, frankly, the whole concept, but maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. We'll see. Maybe you guys can enlighten me in the comments about how great this thing is. In any case, that's sort of the lead-in. Okay, we got all these red flags, whatnot. And he has this section where he seems to imply that men can go to the gym and do this stuff and become an 8 out of 10. This is a pretty big deal. Another guy had said 7 out of 10, but it's obviously pretty laughable. A 3 out of 10 is not going to become an 8 out of 10. He might become a 4 or 5, but even there, if you're short and you've got a not particularly desirable face, you're just an unattractive guy with muscles. Since the rise of the smartphone, of course, so many people are in the gym now that it's not really a unique thing to do. It's not, oh wow, this guy's really setting himself apart because he's in the gym. So at that point, you would really have to be almost a bodybuilder to stand out in a noticeable fashion. In fact, he has this one part where he's going, what to do if you're 7 out of 10? What to do if you're 6 out of 10? But he doesn't talk about what do you do if you're 3 out of 10? What do you do if you're 1.5 out of 10? What do you do if you're Yogi Zero abs? A lot of guys out there are struggling immensely, and yet it seems most of this self-improvement is being directed towards mid-tier normies who have at least enough of a face, at least the height, to where if they work on their body and they wear better clothes, it's going to show in a noticeable sense. I think of that, was it Casey Zander? He didn't look that great, and then he built up his muscles, but you already have a certain threshold of genetics that's going to benefit you in that regard. And a lot of these guys, oh, no, as long as you just put in the work, you're going to be a king. Well, not everyone can be a king. Not everyone can be an 8 or a 9 out of 10. It's just not realistic. Because if everyone's an 8 or 9 out of 10, it's like inflation. It's not worth anything. And this really reminds me, Incel TV had a great video called Abundance Mindset that I'll be citing in the book that I'm writing, where he plays clips of AMS coaching sessions. And you've got the white dude with the glasses, normie, and he's like, I'm on my purpose, and I like to do road trips, and I'm doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm working on my career, I've written these books, I've got political ambitions, and yet women are just not responding to me. And AMS is like, well, man, just listening to you, you sound kind of boring. And, another Asian dude, man, how do you expect me, like, I'm approaching all these women, and I keep getting rejected, and you say just have a good attitude, and focus, and don't give up. And he's like, well, this is why I start talking about self-improvement. And you're like, dude, you're a 6'3", decent-looking black guy. And you're telling these normie dudes, yeah, it's about personality or self-improvement, which is ridiculous. In fact, I just read a book, which is definitely cited in the one that's upcoming that I'm writing, where she's interviewing girls on a college campus. And she says, so what do you really want in a guy? Hot, super hot. What about his personality? It doesn't matter. He can be awkward as long as he's super hot. What does that tell you? All this gaslighting men, blowing smoke up their ass. Oh yeah, you need to have a personality. You need to do this, do that. As ITV says, most of the young women, 18 to 25, they don't have a really developed personality because they don't have to. If you're cute, you're not expected to be interesting. It's not like a social prerequisite. And so you're telling guys to basically try to, act like a little clown with their interests. Well, a lot of these girls aren't going to even be able to hold a conversation, let alone hold eye contact. If they don't find you attractive, they're going to just, okay, yeah, whatever. In fact, you're going to be a conversationalist. That doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be a romantic partner. In fact, I've tried this a couple of times as an experiment because I want to make sure that I'm not being unfair to red pillars. You go on a dating app or even in person, and you start engaging a chick. If she does not find you physically attractive, that conversation and your, oh, it's so interesting, he knows his facts, aren't going to matter. Because ultimately, oh, I had this really interesting lecture. Well, if you got some old shriveled professor, she's not going to have sex with a professor because he's interesting, unless she's trying to boost her grade, maybe. I know that's happened. Physical attraction, height is extremely important, and trying to claim like women are different, yeah, the Victorian idea, women, they don't judge like that, they're not animalistic, they're actually very pure, and they don't look at the skin level, they look for the heart. Okay, sure, right. And I'm a Transformers uncle, I'm sure. This leads to another question, because I read this book, and immediately preceding it, I read the Book of Numbers by Aaron Clarey, which is pretty interesting. In Clarey's defense, he does bring up the fact that if a girl is on the other side of the country, you shouldn't write her off, especially in today's dating market where it can be very difficult to find someone. But neither of these guys talk about going overseas, which is going to help some dudes, even if they would end up having to pay, but still. There's this, oh yeah, be a man, work hard. Now you know that most guys following Manosphere content, buying these products, are going to be average to below average. Yet these guys, Cooper and Clarey, say stuff like all the red flags. If she's a single mom, if she's got piercings outside of her ears, if she's got multiple tattoos, if she's a liberal, if she's got unnaturally colored hair, stay away from those women as much as possible. And you're going, okay, well, let's be real for a second. You start putting up those requirements, and I agree with it if they're overweight. I won't even bother with that. But you start putting up those requirements, you're already eliminating probably 60, 70%, if not more, of the modern dating sphere. So you're telling guys who are already at a deficit with women, they're maybe not the tallest, they're not the best looking, oh yeah, eliminate all of these potential options because they don't fit the bill of what it means to be a high value man who, doesn't settle for less. It's like, okay, the amount of women walking around today who are feminine, who don't have tattoos, who don't have weird piercings, who don't color their hair unnaturally, is relatively small, and oftentimes those women, unless you're talking about a very specific religious community or ethnic group, those women are usually going to go for the top tier guys. That's the way it works. So you're basically sentencing a lot of these dudes, if they follow you to the letter, to being incels. There's not much they're going to be able to do because they've eliminated a lot of their better options, or okay options, I should say. And just to discuss this briefly, the last month and a half, I've gone out with 2 chicks that have unnaturally colored hair, which is not normally something I would do. But I was like, let's just see how it goes. One was this petite, short, Latina, pretty cute, a little bit awkward. She was really into me after the date. She was simping, oh yeah, I want to keep hanging out with you, all this stuff. I think I cut her off because she changed one date, and I was already kind of irritated that day, and I have very little patience with women when they do stuff of that nature. So that's one thing. You have to be kind of subdued if you want to be successful in modern dating. You can't have a short temper, which I depending on the week, I can have. But there was another one, this white chick, slim but big ion cannons. into anime cosplay, went out with her. She's not a 10 out of 10, but she's cute and an okay personality, as much as you're going to get from people who watch anime or read those comic books. The point being, there are options out there. Now, I should note, yes, I'm over 6 feet. I've got okay looks, but I do wear glasses, which is a strike against me. Still, I would think an average dude could potentially have a shot at a chick like that. And so at least they're getting that experience. Maybe they're getting laid. All right. But if you're telling them, oh yeah, no, don't focus on those women, go for the feminine ones, there aren't that many feminine women who meet all these requirements of the red pill guru anymore. You might luck out, and if you do, fantastic, but frankly, I think a lot of these guys who are average or maybe below average, maybe they can build themselves up to be a 5 out of 10, depending. Those guys are going to have to be realistic and say, well, maybe if I want to have a sex life, I'm going to have to not go for the red pill ideal of the she wears a dress and she cooks you food and she's a conservative and she opposes vaccines. I mean, that's all well and good, but it's not available to most men nowadays. So it might be a time for some of these guys to just say, okay, keep up your guard, like don't marry a single mom, don't simp for a chick. But at the same time, if you have an opportunity, don't just turn it down because, well, it doesn't fit my bill. She's a liberal. She's got weird hair. Well, still, you find her attractive, let it go forth. And you don't have to marry them. You don't have to frickin' have their kids. That's even weird coming, the guy having the kids. But it's an option, at least in the short term, to help some guys so they don't feel sexually frustrated and get just more angry at the system that they have no control over.